Hey there, it's Mart from MaxQ. There's my name in case you didn't know. It's kind of weird. And MaxQ is an operation that I started a couple of years ago to work on a docu-series on the SR-71 Blackbird. I don't have any big money behind that project, but it continues to move forward, and I'm pretty excited it's going to turn into something one of these days. But I'm also expanding the MaxQ work into aircraft restoration on the low and slow side. That's a Piper J-3 Cub. Interestingly, that Cub fuselage there does not go with these wings. The fuselage for those wings is over there in the spray booth. And I actually have this is my fuselage here. It's for a clipped wing Cub. A hangar collapsed on that airplane many years back, and I acquired it after I did the Super Cub restoration. So you might be familiar with me. I did a 1959 A model Super Cub, completed it in 2018, and it won a bronze Lindy up at Oshkosh, which was pretty awesome. And so I was very fortunate to have that opportunity and to have it turn out so well. It certainly blew my mind that it came out as nice as it did. But I will admit, I worked really hard on it. So also, just so you know, if you like this hat for the J-3 Cub, if you love the J-3 Cub, I sell these hats over at my little side operation here at shirtberg.com. So I encourage that maybe you check that out. I've got some SR-71 t-shirts over there, some tail dragger oriented t-shirts. It's a pretty small little operation right now, but it's something I'm trying to do to generate some additional income, keep me moving forward. I've been a ceramic tile installer for quite a few years. Had to go back to that work after the Super Cub because I didn't find any more restoration work until now. So this Cub is going to get, I should say, this Cub over here, those wings, and here's the fuselage in a rotisserie that I put in my spray booth. This little shop is actually, it's only 30 by 30, which interestingly is somewhat larger though than the space that I did most of the work on the Super Cub. That was a super low budget project. This one's still fairly low budget, and this shop is right behind my house. So it's not big enough to put the wings on, but as it turns out with this airplane, all I have to do is get it through paint and then deliver it back to Andy, who actually owns Stuart System. So this will get the Stuart System on it because it's actually Andy's airplane, and that's what I put on the Super Cub, the Stuart System, and I enjoy the process with it. It's definitely a little different, but I really like it. And so this the fuselage here, I put it in a rotisserie to make it easy to turn and work on. So it's a real, I don't do things oftentimes like everybody else, so I've actually bolted it to the wall. And then here at the back, I just have this little stand that works out really well with a little assembly I tap into the tail spring attach points, and that makes a really nice little rotisserie for being able to work on the airplane or on the fuselage in any position. So that's going to be awesome. The fuselage has already had some prep work done on it. It still needs a little bit more. I'm planning on having maybe weekly updates with this project. So here soon we'll have more info to show the progress going on there. One thing I thought would be kind of interesting to point out, I had some exposure to the Cub. Well, we had a clipped wing Cub when I was a teenager. So going back out here to my clipped wing fuselage, which I haven't had the time and money to make any progress on this airplane. I've had it since 2018. I'm hoping maybe now that I'm focused on airplanes for my everyday work, I might be able to make some progress on it. But we had a clip wing Cub with a Continental 90 on it when I was a teenager, and it was an absolutely fantastic airplane. And then I hadn't actually flown in a full span Cub until 2014. And then in 2016, I had exposure to one locally that I got to do some maintenance on and get to fly. And I ran into an interesting issue with it. When I originally came into contact with it, the trim system didn't work at all. And so one of my tasks was to figure out why and what it needed. and in the process of looking, realized that the trim cable actually had broken, so obviously it wasn't going to work. Fixed that problem, and but then the other interesting thing that turned out, as you probably know if you know Cubs, right here in this area is where the jack screw that pivots the leading edge of the stab up and down for trim. The problem with that Cub, even when the trim was working, was that you couldn't get enough forward nose down trim if you were flying by yourself in the back seat. And so after doing a bunch of research, I finally figured out what the problem was with it. And it's a problem that apparently has occurred with several Cubs over the years. And it happens to take place right here on the top longeron. When these airplanes get damaged, which, 80 years old, you're going to have some damaged airplanes. Oftentimes, whoever does the repair doesn't realize there's a significant bend in this top longeron. There's supposed to be, right from the factory, at this location. In fact, over here I have a set of old that I got from the 1980s up at Oshkosh from Waigaro for their sport trainer, which is their Cub replica from back in the day. It used to be called the Cubby. So it's kind of interesting here if you look at this drawing of the fuselage side, and if we put a straight edge on that top longeron, you can see how significantly here the top longeron bends at this location down lower. And the whole reason is so that this mount here for the rear of the stab can be positioned up higher, more in line with the top longeron. So anyway, the reality is that several of these airplanes, that's the reason why you can't get enough nose down trim, and ultimately they really need to be altered back to the way they're supposed to be. So anyway, if you happen to have an airplane, a J3, that you have trouble getting enough nose down trim when you're flying it just from the back seat, when you have somebody in the front seat, of course, you got enough forward weight that it's not difficult to get the airplane to trim out. Obviously though, jack screw trim problems in a Cub typically are that the cable is not gripping well enough and it's slipping. It might work on the ground, but once you're in the air and there's a little bit of load on the tail, the cable will slip. So those are the first things to check. But this is an interesting point. I just thought this would be a really interesting thing to point out because I've not seen a lot of information on the internet about this issue. And it's just one that if you have a Cub apart and you're doing work on it, that's a really good thing to verify up against the prints. And not necessarily the Cubby prints, even though they are certainly very similar to what the actual Piper prints were. But that's a great way to find out if that's a problem that you have with the airplane. So let's see. So the spray booth is also a place where I'm going to do a fair amount of work. I don't have it completed 100% in here. I still have the exhaust to hook up. But I do have a heat system that can heat the whole building here. And I'm trying to create a nice little workspace. I've got some things that are going to go on the walls here before too long to make it even a little bit nicer. I like to have an inspiring environment. And so I've got some cool graphics that are going to go up, running a little behind on all that. But anyway, so I pulled the fabric off the wings on this Cub, and also I should say this fuselage for my clip wing, which if you look close you can see there's definitely some damaged tubes. It's got quite a few issues. I'm going to put it back up above the ceiling here. I have a loft. When I had this the trusses made for this building, even though it's only 30 feet wide, I had a clear span in the trusses made that's 15 feet wide, and then I built a door up on the second floor that's 8 feet wide and 4 feet tall, and I can get large pieces up in there because otherwise I just have this small hole with a ladder for getting up there to put small parts up there. So anyway, I'm going to move it back up above here before long, so I've got a little more room in here. But one of the things I did when I worked on the Super Cub is that I work alone and I don't typically have access to somebody real handy to help me flip wings over when you're working on them. So I did this hanging system, and I've taken it a little step further here with this Cub project. I mounted, first I put between the trusses some structural members on the top side of the ceiling so that I could attach that, it's gas line, but it's of course not functioning as a gas line. So it's nice and solid, and then I have the rings that are mounted on there, and I made these cables. And so not only does the wing hang from the ceiling, but I have a full 10 foot of distance that I can slide either or both wings to a better place to either make more room out here in the workshop or to make more room for working on one wing specifically. So, and I did actually everything. Well, first off, I'm gonna replace the leading edges. Like, I pulled the leading edges off of this wing just the other day, and there's quite a bit of dents, and so I'm going to make new leading edges. And of course these wings need cleaned up and such. That'll be done with the wing flat on horses here soon. But then once I'm ready to move towards the actual fabric covering, I'm going to put the wings back up in this position. And I did this with the Super Cub, and I was amazed at how well it worked. But I actually did all of the fabric covering in this position, and then I stitched the wings and taped the wings, sprayed the wings, and finished the wings all in this position. And of course I'll be moving the wings into the spray booth for that last bit of it. In fact, maybe doing a bunch of that work, may cover the wing one at a time in the spray booth in this position. Not sure, I can move them if necessary. I have just singular hard points that I put up in the ceiling because there's not room or any need to be able to move the wings laterally in here. So anyway, this will be where all the spraying at least would take place for sure. So anyway, that's kind of a tour of the very humble, tiny Max Q workshop, which is right behind my house, which is pretty darn convenient. And I am definitely looking forward to getting deep into this J3 and trying to make it on a budget, make it as nice as we can. And it's pretty hard to beat the good old open door flying that you can do in a J3 Cub. I also really look forward to the day, if I can get to it, the clip wing. To me, the clip wing Cub is one of the world's greatest airplanes. And if you've never flown one, or at least a good one, you need 85 or 90 horse on a clip wing. But with a 90 horse engine on a clip wing Cub, if it's a clean airframe and properly rigged, it is absolutely a fantastic airplane. It carries, and in my opinion, they're typically best done with a traditional Cub paint job. But obviously a lot of the clip wing Cubs get a very, very sport acro type paint job. Whatever, that's fine too. And in fact, weirdly, after having said all that, my plan for my clip wing Cub, I call it the Battle Bear, and I have a kind of an unusual military design paint scheme that kind of blends both the traditional Cub paint job with a military scheme, and it's definitely unusual. So I'm not normal, but if you know me, you already know that. So anyway, again, I encourage, maybe check out the hats over at Shirtberg. I would definitely like to make a hat for you, or I've got t-shirts too that are available there that are kind of cool. Give me some feedback, comment if you're interested, and hopefully we will do at least a weekly update of the progress of this airplane, these wings and that fuselage, and we'll see how things go. Thanks for watching.